Hello. Today's book is The Road by Jack London. I didn't read the book in text form, in a book form. It was written in book form, but that's not how I consumed it. There are a lot of books on YouTube, people reading books on YouTube. What is it called? Biblio something or other. But there was one that I listened to The Road in this 4-hour and 45-minute audio book form. The reader wasn't like professional terrific, but he did a fine job, and I hand it to anybody who would try to read a whole book like that on a microphone. I don't think I could do it. So this is not my first time with Jack London. Jack London, if you don't know, was like a really important writer for the 20th century. Not so much for what he did, for what he did, and then the repercussions of all that, in that many young men in the early 20th century. Jack London died in 1916, and only 40 years old, and accomplished a great deal and got quite wealthy and traveled all over the world, which is one of the things that ended up killing him, because he was alcoholic. He had this weird tropical disease called yaws that he picked up, on one of his journeys. But so Jack London was really big, and how Jack London keeps popping up in other things, like a couple books back when I read Paul Theroux's book, Burma Sahib, there is quite a bit of Jack London in that, because Jack London actually was the one who young men were reading Jack London in the 20s, is what I'm trying to say. So, or George Orwell was reading Jack London in Burma, like his books were getting all over the world. He was, that big and that popular. He was also a socialist, and so that was interesting as well, and wrote very, socialist books. He wrote a dystopian future novel called The Iron Heel. I read that years and years ago. I read The Iron Heel years ago, and I read Martin Eden years ago, which was, I think, one of my favorites, which is made into a recent Italian movie that is sort of Martin Eden. And what else? Oh, I read John Barleycorn is interesting, talking about the drinking life and his feelings about alcohol and alcoholism, feeling kind of against it, actually, and coming out in at the end of it, saying votes for women, because the idea was that once the women got the vote, they would vote for prohibition, which is sort of what happened. So so John Barleycorn, and I read The Call of the Wild again more recently. The Call of the Wild is a really good book, actually, and it's kind of a, if you think of Jack London as like a kid's writer, he's not a kid's writer at all. I mean, this is an animal story. Call of the Wild is a biography of a dog who ends up going to Alaska with something. He goes through all the different owners, all his different owners, and finally ending up in Alaska, and finally getting the Call of the Wild and taking off into wildness. Well, The Road is sort of a Call of the Wild too. In The Road, which is, I guess, sort of a memoir, probably somewhat fictionalized memoir. Well, the memoirs are allowed to be fictionalized, aren't they? Because they're not supposed to be absolute fact, but this is how I remember it. So he talks about when he was 16, he was known as the oyster king, because oyster pirate king or something, because he was stealing oysters from people. There's a big oyster business in San Francisco. He grew up in Oakland. He was born in Oakland, grew up in Oakland. So a lot of his story is around California and the San Francisco Bay Area. And so he tells a story about going up to find a stolen boat. A friend of his boat was stolen, and he goes and gets the stolen boat, and it's been impounded by the local constable, who wants $25. Well, the reward for the boat is only going to be $10, so he can't really deal with that, and so he kind of outsmarts the constable and shoves off and sets sail with sails before the constable can catch him. So, and there's a lot of that kind of stuff, running away from the law. I mean, once we get on the road, and so he talks about meeting some of the road kids and seeing them as sort of this pack of kids who are the ones that are already riding the railroads all over the country. And so he listens to them talk and can't understand a thing they're saying because they're all like jargon of the road. And then he is, why? Well, he was caught up in the romance of it. So Buck got the call of the wild from somewhere, and young Jack in this book gets the call of the wild too, to hit the road, and no particular destination, not to go somewhere and do something, just to get out there and see what it's like. I mean, this is like 1898, I think he starts this, and why don't you work like other folk do? How the hell can I work when the sky's so blue? Hallelujah, I'm a bum. Hallelujah, bum again. Hallelujah, give us a hand out to revive us again. And in 1898, the Cross-Continental Railroad was, kind of new. It was only like 30, 40 years old, I guess. And so, this was fantastic. And the road meant being on the railroad, because there were no interstate highways then. That didn't come in till like the 50s. And a system really to move around, be able to move around military stuff is one of the main purposes for the interstate highway. At least that's what I've heard and understood. It started in the Eisenhower years, post-war. So, the road, he goes on the road, and there's a lot of stuff about, riding railroads, because riding railroads was what the road was, and all the ins and outs of not getting caught by the bulls, the authorities for the railroad, the workers that watch the railroad, the private dicks, whatever. And so there's a lot of hair-raising episodes of escaping the dicks chasing him. There's episodes of what goes on in camp, in the railroad camps. There's a bunch of stuff about Kelly's Army, like a pack of 2,000 road kids, people who all moved together in one big mass, and how they're in Des Moines, Iowa, and the city feeds them for a couple of days and finds a way to get rid of them by giving them boats and sending them down the Des Moines River, which is apparently not that much of a river. At least it wasn't then when they were trying to sail away. So they do sail away and go off to other cities, and so he finally leaves Kelly's Army. But, he meets several people along the way and meets them again. Like there's one guy called the Swede. Everybody has handles. So there's one guy called the Swede who he meets several times. And, it's always great to see somebody again and so forth. He talks about the sort of slavery you can get involved with, which still exists today, where they will arrest you for the bounty that they get. You know, each hobo in the town, you know, you bring, I don't know, whatever money to the person that captures them. And he talks about in Rutland, Vermont, where I was aware that there were marble quarries in Rutland, Vermont, probably no longer operating. I don't know what's going on with that. But there was a system of arresting road people, road kids, and giving them a sentence of 90 days, which they have to work off in the marble quarries, which, you know, he did not want to work in the marble quarry and avoided that. So that was a happy episode, even though he did go through Vermont a little bit. He spends a lot of time in Canada, so going across the Transcontinental Canadian Railroad. I don't know when that was completed, but it's there in 1898 or whenever, when he's recounting the story in the book. And so he goes across on the Transcontinental Railroad as well. So it's a lot of adventures on the road. It's road stories, and yeah, it's you can see, if you read early or mid 20th century literature, you can see the impact of Jack London on particularly male writers, I guess. One of which was Nelson Algren. There's certain similarities to the road with his book Somebody in Boots, which was I think his first novel that he sort of said was not good enough, but I really liked it. But Somebody in Boots is totally the road. The kid goes on the road, he travels around, he gets arrested, he gets put in jail for a while. All the same sorts of things that, well, it's just the story of the road, what happens on the road. Also, in other things that I've been listening to and so forth, Jack London also popped up on a podcast that I listened to called America This Week with Matt Taibbi and Walter Kern. And they pick a story. They talk for like a couple hours every week. And you have to subscribe to see or watch or listen to the whole thing. But the first half hour is usually free to watch for anybody. So at the end of it, the last half hour, they usually talk about a story. So each week, one or the other of them submits a story. And the story, last week, I think, a couple weeks ago, was Jack London's To Build a Fire. So Jack London popped up again, and I listened to Build a Fire in audiobook on YouTube again. It's a short story, so it was a story on YouTube. And it's great. I mean, it's all about this guy in the freezing cold and how he tries to build a fire. He has a dog with him, and what goes on with the dog, and what goes on with trying to build a fire, and how it's going to be like 40 below zero and stuff like this. And it's all about how to survive in the freezing cold. And he doesn't really have the knack and the know-how, and blunders in a way that you might have thought of, which ends up ruining the whole thing for him. So yeah, that was good. The road, I was caught up in the romance of the road and all that stuff in my youth, but the road at that point was the superhighways, the interstate highways. And I hitchhiked from Ohio. Hitchhiking was pretty common back then in 1969, 70, 71, around there, the very earliest 70s. And I hitchhiked all the way across the country, actually, from back and forth to the east, from Ohio to Vermont, from Ohio, back and forth several times. And then Ann and I, my high school girlfriend and wife, soon-to-be wife, we hitchhiked all the way to Oregon and stayed in Eugene, Oregon for a winter, which was pretty awful, actually, but because the West was kind of crazy. But yeah, we hitchhiked all the way across the country, and so that was quite an adventure. So I understand the appeal of the road. In the road, interstate highways were not built when this book was written, and so they didn't have that, and so they just took the railroads. And I could have hopped the railroads, I suppose. I could still hop the railroads. I think about the road. I think about going on the road like that. Still a little bit. I think about being the bum. The Hallelujah. It's attractive to have, no ties, which I'm kind of down the minimal of that as it is, and property, and to be free on the road like that. And it appealed to me after high school, and I did go on the road and looked around and saw stuff, and came to New York and saw Frank Zappa actually in 1970 at the Fillmore East. But anyway, the mother's invention. But so I understand this whole going on. I don't know what kids do today. I don't know if there is much of that road stuff anymore. I mean, I see crusties are. People live in cities. There's like homeless type kids traveling around who kind of wear neo punk wear, and have lots of tattoos, so forth, and often have dogs, and these are the crusties. I don't know if they hop railroads. Probably don't hop railroads too well with dogs, so I don't really know what goes on as far as. I had a DVD some years ago, like 20 years ago, by a guy who was a road guy. I don't remember his name or anything about it, but it was a sort of self-made thing about traveling on railroads, and the different sorts of signs for different kinds of things, like hobos and that will leave themselves different sorts of signs, to tell you whether this is a safe place, where you can get food here, things like that. So that's kind of what I got to say about springtime has come, and I'm just out of jail, without any money and without any bail. Hallelujah, I'm a bum. Hallelujah, bum again. Hallelujah, give us a hand out to revive us again. A knock on the door, beg a scrap of bread, and the lady came out and says, the baker's dead. Hallelujah, I'm a bum. Hallelujah, bum again. Hallelujah, give us a hand out to revive us again. I don't give a damn what the good people think, so long as I got plenty of hooch to drink. Hallelujah, I'm a bum. Hallelujah, bum again. Hallelujah, give us a hand out to revive us again. Hallelujah, I'm a bum. Hallelujah, bum again. Hallelujah, give us a hand out to